2015 Longview City Council meeting is now called to order. Tonight, the invocation, the prayer and the pledge will be led by Senior Founding Pastor Marty Straight of Pathway Church. Please rise and remove your hats, please.
Let us pray. Father, we are thankful and grateful for your presence in our lives, your blessing in our lives, and your blessing upon our city. We believe that all authority is appointed by you, so we are thankful for the men and women that you have given our city to govern and lead it. We ask now that you would give them wisdom with liberality, perfect wisdom that comes from you as they lead us forward. We ask that you would continue to bless our city, and we ask that you would protect our men and women in uniform who daily serve our city. In Jesus' name, amen. Now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Straight.
Thank you.
We're now to the employee recognition part of our program. Would Dixie Golden, Gary Lilly, Laura Starling, Annie Oakton, Bud Starr, Bobby Barbie, Fabian Rockmore, and Luster Thomas please come forward? I think Mr. Thomas had to stay back to take care of customers. Is that correct? Okay. Okay, I'm going up here. For those of you who don't know, this is our Mod Cobb Activity Complex staff. And I'm fixing to read some things to you because I want you to understand what these people do for our community. In January of 2013, the City of Longview was informed that AMBUX 2 would no longer be able to sponsor the 4th of July fireworks that have been such a huge part of our community for so many years. Since the fireworks have always been held at the Mod Cobb Activity Complex, the Mod Cobb staff were involved in the initial conversation to decide if the city could assume the responsibility for putting on this festival. The decision was not only to put on the fireworks, but to grow the event to the entire day. The 2015 4th of July Fireworks and Freedom Celebration was a resounding success, attended by thousands of East Texans. Events and attractions included a giant water slide, a free concert, parades, a flyover, carnival rides, an all-American car show, vendors, food, roller derby, countless free activities for the entire family, and the fireworks show that awed everyone in attendance. I would also like to mention, that we have many partners that assist in making that day such a success. Our sponsors, the Veterans Recognition Foundation, Backwoods Bombshells Roller Derby Team, the CERT Volunteers, Longview Police Explorers, the Fire Department Explorers, Utility and Diversity Committee, Parks Department, Fire Department, Police Department, and many other city departments all gave up their holidays to put on this event. Now, planning is already underway for the 2016 event, and it will be bigger and better than ever. But what I want to do is I want to recognize these men and women that are there every time something goes on at Mod Cobb. And for those of you all that attend Mod Cobb, you understand we get to come, enjoy, and we leave. You know what? Someone had to prepare it before you got there and clean it up after you leave. And that's what these men and women do every day, and they do it without any praise or any thanks. And I want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for the dedication that you serve our city with. And you never ask for anything. And we appreciate you so much, but I want to recognize you and tell you how much the City of Longview appreciates your service to our community. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Once again, give them a round of applause. And as a side note on that, just so you all know, Maud Cobb is a busy place. If you don't think so, try to book something there. It's busy, and they do a phenomenal job day in and day out. So we really do appreciate your service to our community. Thank you so much. You all make Maud Cobb a success for Longview. Okay, citizen comment. I'm going to shuffle the deck here. Imagine, Mr. Buddy Stewart, you ended up first.
At least I get home to dinner. I just would like to ask a question. Are you going to discuss the budget tonight, or are we just going to go through the motions that's already approved?
Oh, no, sir, it's not already approved. We definitely will have discussion on the budget tonight.
Okay, well, put me down for that then.
No, this is when you get to discuss it.
You know, I have come from the north part of Longview tonight, and I dodged about 5 manhole covers, 4 holes in the road, and we're going to spend $1 million to show how big we are when people come to town, but we can't fix the streets. I've been after this ever since I've been here. Faces change, nothing else changes. Y'all got the disease already, but somebody needs to put a budget item in there to fix those manhole covers. Discussion.
Thank you, sir. Those are zoning. Okay, next I have retired police chief J.B. McCaleb.
Dr. Mack, Council, Mr. Willard. I'm J.B. McCaleb, and I had the privilege of serving the citizens of Longview for 32 years as a member of the police department. I'm here tonight to endorse Mr. Willard's recommendation for Mike Bishop to be appointed as our next police chief. I first met Mike when he joined the department in 1989. I was always impressed with his ability to work with the public. I found him to be of high integrity, professionalism, and commitment. He was chosen to be our first police area representative, or what's most commonly known today as PAR officer. He was assigned in the Stamford Park area, where he was able to establish trust and communications with the citizens of that area. In fact, it was his efforts that was used to expand that model citywide. In 2003, when I was appointed chief, I promoted Mike to the rank of lieutenant, where he served in many command positions. Upon my retirement in 2011, Mike was promoted to assistant chief of police, where he's had the opportunity to gain experience and knowledge necessary to lead a police agency. Mike's dedication to the community goes far beyond the police department. He's been a member of the Longview Ambush Club now for over 20 years, serving on its board of directors for much of that time. He and his family attend the Gregton United Methodist Church. He certainly prepared himself well with education and experience, but I would urge you to look at his record of performance and commitment as to why he is worthy for this appointment. I have full confidence in his ability to lead the department, and I strongly encourage you to appoint him to that position. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next, we have retired Chief Don Dingler.
Mayor, Council, Mr. Willard, Chief McCaleb messed me up. He got up here and said everything I was going to say, but let me say a few things. First of all, I'd like to commend y'all for the job that y'all do. You're an excellent group of people, and you always make good decisions. Now, the next thing is, today I think you're going to make a decision on who might be the next police chief. In 2011, Mike Bishop became an assistant police chief, and from that time, I was able to see him grow. He grew from a person that cared about the police department, cared about the city, and cared about all of the employees, and that just kept growing. He is a great person. If each of you has taken time to read his resume and his bio, you'll see the accomplishments that he's made, and you'll just have to come to the conclusion, this is a really good man. So I want to tell you that I would back Mike Bishop as the police chief, and I hope that that's the way that you'll vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next, I have Wesley Byrd.
Good evening, Mel
Good evening, sir.
and City Council. I have been reading in the paper about this process, and I understand that the cars already have the permission is to buy. That means that this really wasn't necessary, was it? Since they already had permission to buy the land?
No, you're talking about the Kilgore College zoning thing. Sir, it's not official until we have to vote on things before it's official.
Okay, I was a little confused. It didn't say anything about a hearing on buying the land, and I thought that it had already been rezoned. So that means that rezoning comes second. I'm kind of confused on it, that if they can already buy the land and it had not been rezoned yet, that means they could get the land cheaper if it's residential. Because I know if it's been rezoned, it's a good deal for the city. And I'm for city expansion in the comprehensive plan. I'd go for it. But it seemed to me that if the college already had the permission is to buy the land and it's residential, I believe they could get it cheaper. And if it's rezoned, that means get a couple more dollars. Is that true?
Sir, let me just, even though we're not really supposed to engage during this form of our meeting, let me explain to you. The college can purchase any piece of land they want to for whatever purpose they deem fit, but if we don't approve the zoning, then they have a piece of property they can put houses on if they want to. If it doesn't fit their mold, that's their problem. If we rezone it, then they can do what they want. The zoning request comes before us. We have not approved that yet. So until we approve it, nothing has changed. But if they want to go out and purchase a property, if you want to go out and purchase a piece of property, you're welcome to. If you want to try to get it rezoned, that's also your prerogative. Some people do it before they purchase it. Some people do it after they purchase it. We don't control who purchases property in the community. Does that make sense to you?
Well, you don't control who purchased the property? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
I thought the college was purchasing the property.
They can. We can't tell them they can't purchase land. If they want to purchase property, they're able to do that. Now, whether we rezone it to meet their requirements may or may not fit into their plan, that's up to this council to do that. It may not fit in their plan, and that's the case. They might have a piece of property that's not worth what they wanted it to be worth. We don't know that.
I'm still confused.
I'm sorry, sir. Well, I tell you what, we'll get with you after the meeting. If you would get with Angela, look to your left shoulder right there, the young lady right there. Turn right here, sir. If you'll get with her, she'll explain everything to you so you'll know what we're talking about, okay?
This is the planner.
She's awesome, okay?
Okay, I know her. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Catherine Paveller? I'm sorry if I butchered that.
Peevely.
I wasn't even close.
Okay, I'm kind of like Wesley Byrd. I need more information on the zoning part on this, because I own land right next door to the college. and I guess I'm for the zoning, but I need to talk to her too.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you so much. Dr. Fowler.
Well, I would like to talk to both of these people, too. I'm here to speak on behalf of the overlay district that the Planning and Zoning Commission has passed a couple of weeks ago. My name is Julie Fowler, and I'm an employee of Kilgore College here in Longview and have been since 1986. I have never worked on the Kilgore campus. I've always worked here in Longview. In 1996, I became the Chief Administrative Officer of Kilgore College Longview, and it has been my goal ever since to grow the college here in Longview. Years ago, I was pressured to ask the college to move to North Longview. I'm a citizen of Longview and have been since the mid-'70s. I love Longview, and I'm committed to Longview, especially downtown and South Longview. South Longview was Longview when I was growing up. So I always felt that the college should stay right where it is because it would enhance that part of Longview. In 2007, Eastman Chemical came to us and said, "We need you to start an industrial maintenance program." The reason they came to us was because their employees, just like all other employees in most organizations, many of whom are baby boomers, were getting ready to retire, and they had a shortage of people who could perform the skills needed to keep Eastman Chemical up and running. We gladly accepted, and with Eastman's help, as well as a number of other businesses in this community, we started the industrial maintenance program, built a wonderful facility just south of the main building, the old Sears building, and we have continued to grow. Longview Economic Development at the time, who was under the direction of John Stroud, gave the college land. We did not know at the time that that land, as well as our main building, was under a city ordinance called the South Main Ordinance. Now, we are in favor of keeping our historic residences and buildings intact. That's good for our community, and we want to keep that historic flavor to our community. But we were between a rock and a hard place. We couldn't grow, we were landlocked, and what were we to do? So we started meeting with Ms. Choi and Mr. Shirley and talking about things that we could do. Mr. Shirley suggested that the best thing to do was to give him a vision. He said, "I'd like to see what your plan is." So we hired an architect, Bryce Davis. I told Bryce what my vision was, and he put it down on paper, and I am so eager to show it to each of you, the beautiful vision that he has that can be the campus of Kilgore College Longview. His vision keeps the historic flavor of that part of Longview, yet gives us room to expand and create new programs that will be a benefit to the economic development of Longview, Texas, because we will train the future workforce of Longview. That's our mission. That's what we do well. That's what we do every day. We just need to do more of it. And we can't do more of it without expanding. The overlay district would simply give us a little bit more flexibility. The current ordinance is cumbersome. because it says that we have to advertise property depending upon its value for 6 to 12 months before we can begin any kind of removal of a building if it's not purchased to be moved. The overlay district, and I hope I'm stating this right, Ms. Choi can tell me if I'm not, would decrease this timeline to 45 days, which would make it much more realistic for the college. I'm excited about this. As I said, I can't wait for you to see the vision that we have. We want to continue to grow. One of the happiest days of my life was in May of this year when the Kilgore College Board of Trustees unanimously voted to give the administration the money and the authority to purchase more land in Longview. To me, that was a commitment on the board's part, and keep in mind, they have no constituents in Longview because Longview's out of the taxing district. But they said, yes, we want you to grow in Longview, we want you to purchase land, we want you to keep going just like you've been going. That was a commitment, in my opinion, to Longview, Texas, and to our campus here. I thank you for your attention, and I just want to say how much I believe that we are going to make Longview a better place by growing Kilgore College here in Longview.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Fowler. Mr. Lefty Vote.
Good evening, Mayor Mack,
Good evening, sir.
city council members, Ricky, David Willard, city manager. I want to talk about my dollar. I don't want to give it. If you do, Andy, you can pay for mine. At the last meeting, Mr. Moore said, go ahead and give him $1 and maybe we can do it later on in the year. You haven't lived in this town very long. Once this city gets something, they don't ever give it back. Wasn't long ago when gasoline went way up. Oh, we can't figure a budget. So let's make the people pay for it. All right, gasoline went down. They went from gasoline to natural gas, which is even cheaper. Did that money go away? No, we're still paying it, just like Washington. Once you get it, hang on to it. That ain't the way this city is supposed to work. They talk about when things are good, everything's good. But when things are bad, guess what? Then they're all looking for money. A number of years ago, I got my water bill. I looked at it. The previous reading was the same as the present. So I called down and I asked them, I said, how can you charge me for water? She says, you must be reading it wrong. Okay. 2 months later, still the same thing. So I finally took the bill down there and I says, how can I be reading this wrong? The previous and the present is still the same numbers. How can you be charging me for water? Well, I guess your water meter's broke. Oh, duh, really? I could have told you that 3 months ago. Now you remember back when all of a sudden somebody, light bulb went on in this town. Oh, we got a lot of broken water meters in this town. I finally got mine fixed 1.5 years later. That ain't how you do business in this town. But as far as my dollar, I'm not in favor of it, and neither are a lot of others. Mayor, you were right. This is, if it's an automated system, then let's make it an automated system. Let's stop the malarkey. You know, it was all political because they wanted to go from 2-week pickup to 1 week. A lot of people didn't like it, so we're going to please everybody. You can still use the blue bins. You can still put the bags out. But if you don't do it, what if the majority all wants to decide, oh, we'll roll our carts out to the street, we'll pull the bags out, put them on the street, and roll the carts back? What are you gonna do with the side trucks? What good are they gonna do? You're gonna be picking up bags. So start doing something, get it right, enforce it, do like Garland did. Garland went through the whole process, and then they passed an ordinance. This is the way it's gonna be. You don't like it? Well, then you find another way to get rid of your garbage. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's all the speaker cards I have. Does anyone else like to speak, and they can fill out a card at the end of the meeting?
Thank you, Mayor. I just walked in too late to get a speaker card
Not a
filled out.
problem. Just- We'll get you to fill one out when the meeting's over.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, Council, Mr. Willard, my name's Jeremiah Hunter. I just wanted to also comment briefly on the budget process that we're going through right now. Mr. Willard, you had a fantastic presentation 2 weeks ago. I commend you for your work. You obviously put a lot of effort into that. I wanted to also just reflect some previous statements here. Let's make sure when we're putting this budget together that we are looking at every single line item possible that we can reduce in order, in functions that are not necessarily the primary function of city government, in order to put the money that we really need to put into the core functions of city government, such as law enforcement and sanitation. And roads, of course. Those are lacking a little bit. I mean, we're doing a great job with what we have, but we can do so much better. I do see a tendency to start going after the shiny objects that are nice and fun and say, hey, look what we're doing, but we're leaving behind some of our core functions of city government. I want to encourage you, please dig really deep, really take a hard look at these items that are not necessarily needed in times that we have today. Everyone knows, and Mr. Willard did a great job of saying, look, our revenues are not growing, so let's not engage in these new programs before we take care of the primary functions that we have first. So please make sure and do a solid job on that, and you'll probably have a lot less people coming up here and complaining about some of the core functions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Anyone else? Very good. Okay, we're to action items. Next on the agenda, consider a resolution appointing Mike Bishop as police chief. David Willard, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure tonight to follow Chief Dingler and Chief McCaleb's lead and recommend Mike Bishop to you as our next police chief for the city of Longview. I've known Mike the whole 8 years that I've been here, not in the capacity of an assistant chief, but coming up through the ranks as he has. And most recently, however, he's been our interim police chief, but for the last 4 years, one of our assistant police chiefs. And just to second Chief Dingler and Chief McCaleb, I have full confidence in Mike. I think he is the right person, without any question in my mind, to lead Longview forward and the Longview Police Department forward. He's a man of great integrity, and I just think very highly of Mike personally, and then his capabilities as a police chief and a leader in that department. I'm confident that he has the support of the department behind him, and I think citizens in the community, I've had many people come by or call me and talk about their confidence in Mike, and I think it would be a mistake to go outside and look for anybody else whenever we've got the right man, in my opinion, right here. So I'd recommend wholeheartedly that you approve Mike as the next police chief.
Thank you, Mr. Willard. You know, I've had a number of phone calls since this has been brought to the forefront, and it's very, very encouraging for me to hear from all of the surrounding communities and the police chiefs and the people in position to comment. And you know, I'm so pleased. There's no negativity. This is a 100% positive influx of support for Mike Bishop, and that speaks a lot to Mike Bishop. But when you have two such dignified, respectable, retired police chiefs on your side, that says enough. I mean, that's a huge vote of confidence in my book, and to me, I think it's very important that when we can, we need to promote from within. Because when you don't, what you're doing is you're squashing the abilities and the drive of people to succeed and to do better and to excel. And I don't ever want to see that happen in our community. When we can promote from within, we should. Now, when it's not available, when we can't do it, then we will go outside. But I think in this instance, City Manager, you've done a great job in bringing this to the forefront. So, council discussion? May I have a motion?
I move that we make Mike Bishop the new police chief of Longview.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, Chief. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Mack, Councilman, Mr. Willard. I'd like to take just a moment to thank you for placing your trust and confidence in me to lead the department as its next chief of police. I've had the opportunity to serve under some great mentors, some of which are here tonight, that have helped guide me and prepare me for this position of responsibility. I look forward to working with each of you to ensure that we provide the best professional police services we can. We have great men and women that work for the Longview Police Department, and we are committing to making Longview a better, stronger, and safer community. I look forward to serving you along with the citizens of Longview to make our city a great place to live, work, and visit. Again, thank you for your support. I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, we're to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda the council would like to remove for discussion on separate consideration?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Consent agenda passes. Thank you. Okay, budget items. We're going to discuss the proposed 2015-2016 budget for the City of Longview. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Well, we're back here again. A couple weeks later, the city staff has taken the comments that we talked about at the last budget meeting, and we've continued to work on the budget that we presented the other night, and I know you will have more questions as we go through tonight, but I wanted to take just a moment, if we could, and do a little recap quickly before we have our other discussion to refresh our memories about some of the assumptions that we built our budget upon and the basis that we have for that. And of course, the first one, we built our budget with in mind that we would have basically flat revenue streams. We did have a little increase in our property values, but of course, that has been offset by lower than expected sales tax collections. We have not contemplated any property tax rate increase in this budget. We are not contemplating any increase in the water or sewer rate for next year. We are proposing a dollar rate increase for sanitation services. This budget reflects reorganization of the departments this past year. We've also put a 3% employee pay raise. We've also put in this budget the police pay initiative that was discussed quite a bit last time, animal shelter operations for the upcoming year, and then several comprehensive plan projects that we've put into this budget to begin work on those items that the community adopted last year. And then, of course, this budget does contemplate the use of fund balance reserves to fill in the gap between lower expected revenues and higher expenses. We talked about that as well. I wanted to show you, again, this slide that I think's a very important one that shows the historical look at our property tax rate for the city of Longview. And of course, this is comprised of two separate rates that give you the total. One is for debt, and that is debt that the citizens have approved, primarily the $52 million bond initiative for the streets that was passed in 2011. And of course, we have to levy our tax rate based on our debt service payments for that particular year. Again, this year, the tax rate will be a total of 0.5099. And at the bottom, you can see the breakdown of the debt rate versus the maintenance and operations rate. We feel like over the years that we've done a decent job, I hope, in keeping that as low as possible and depending upon the increased economic property value increase without increasing the rate, except in the fact of voter-approved debt issuances. Again, this is just a pie chart of general fund revenue and the sources, and we're expecting a total of $64,633,838. And then on the expenditure side, this obviously breaks out in this graphic form the expenditures that we expect to see for the general fund of $66,459,755. I wanted to spend a little time, if we could, on the animal shelter issue. I did not do a very clear job, I don't think, last council meeting in the presentation about to give you a clearer look at the animal shelter operations and expenses. And of course, right now we are under construction to build a 27,000 square foot new animal shelter. The cost of, I believe it's $5.7 million. And that is well underway with our partner, Gregg County. And then we've had gracious donations that have been pledged to cover the construction of that animal shelter. And so we're contemplating that will be opened hopefully in April or May of 2016. I believe we have should be 2016, but a year from now, basically, on the construction. And in this budget that begins in October, we have in here a full year of the animal control officer's operations. That's ongoing, and we'll need to budget for that this year, even though the shelter is not technically open until later. We have a full year of the manager's salary. We are in the final negotiations with a candidate to be our animal shelter manager, and we should have an announcement on that in the next week to 10 days. We feel like it's very important for us to be ready when those doors open to fully operate that shelter and to begin to implement the programs that we need to have a successful shelter operation. So we hope she will be, or our candidate will be here shortly and begin work. There's a tremendous amount of work to get policies, procedures, the philosophy that you lay out for us and how we're going to operate this shelter, and so many things that need to be done. We also feel like we need to hire 2 supervisors to go along with that, and we put in 8 months' salary for those 2 positions. And then 6 months of shelter operations, and that would include hiring 13 full-time positions, including a veterinarian, 4 part-time positions. And then we've also made conservative revenue projections for this upcoming year, beginning in October. So in order to kind of clarify, hopefully, we broke out for you broad categories of what we expect to spend in these 3 years. And if you'll see in FY 14-15, our current year, we, on animal services, notwithstanding a shelter, but our animal services, we've spent a total of $621,228, and that includes our ACO, animal control officers, their supplies, equipment, contractual services that we have with the Humane Society, a contract to shelter the animals that we're responsible for. and those things. Now, beginning in 15-16 in October, these are the line items that we feel like, and the total budget that we'll need to budget in order to go forward and be ready when the shelter is finished and be ready to move in. And we can get as detailed as you would like in this discussion on these line items. These are just broad categories. So for FY 15-16, we feel like that we need to budget $1,391,004 for our animal shelter operations, animal services budget. In the revenue, you see below that of $144,186, and we'll talk in a minute a little bit more about the revenue, which we feel like is a conservative number, primarily because we've not done this before. This is the first time that we've operated an animal shelter, and a lot of our revenue will depend on donations and volunteerism and those things, and contracts with other communities for their animals. In 15-16 or 16-17, the question last time was asked, well, once we get up and running, what do you contemplate a full year of operations to be? And this is what we have come up with as a broad category, and it comes up to $1,556,881. Now, that would be offset, obviously, by revenues for the animal services budget, and we will go through those revenues on the next slide. But this is our best estimate of what we think for this upcoming budget, 15-16, we need to put in there to be ready to open the doors when the shelter is finished. On the revenue side, this is, again, you'll look at 15-16. There are, and depending on how you want us to operate it, there are other sources of potential revenue that will, I'm sure, need to be discussed as we move forward, such as pet licensing, how you want to handle that, if you want to do that or if you don't, those type of discussions. But we put in the budget $20,000 for adoption and reclaim fees for animals that we adopt out. Veterinary care services, $111,186 for interlocal agreements that we will hopefully have with other communities that want to come into the shelter. And then we'll have some facilities there for the public that we can rent out, or if they want to use those things, and then some retail items as well. So that would be the expected revenue. And then in 16-17, you see with a full year of operations, hopefully the revenue goes up from various things. And one thing we don't have in here are donated revenues. And that will be a very big ticket item that we want and need to have a facility where the public will feel, the need or the desire, if you will, to be a part of that and to donate money for the cares of these animals. And we're contemplating, when our new manager gets here, we'll need, I think, to set up a 501c3, a separate organization, much like the Friends of the Library organization that would be the fundraising arm of the animal shelter. And hopefully your donor base and your patrons over the years will build, but we just really have no idea what that would be at all, so we didn't put that in our revenue. But you can be assured that that is a big portion of what we need to be out and be doing, and hopefully as we go forward, that will build. So we can, I can talk a little bit about sanitation, or we can go back and discuss, or if you'd like me to kind of finish this portion, and we can go back and dissect that or ask any questions about the animal shelter. Do you have anything necessarily right now, or would you like me to finish this? And Mr. Allen?
Do you want to ask, or you want to wait till?
No, let's go ahead and
Okay.
Let's go back to the.
get this over with.
All right, would you go
Okay.
back to the expenses?
Yes, sir.
Okay, looking down, first off in personnel, now, we have talked about a veterinarian. Are you looking at and I've asked you this just for the benefit of the others, are we still thinking about a full-time vet, a volunteer, part-time, or what on this dollar amount, $729, what are you looking at there as far as a veterinarian?
Well, that does have the cost of a full-time veterinarian in there, and of course, that was a recommendation that came from the task force, I think, and we built in the construction of the facilities, surgical area for a veterinarian and for those spay and neuter operations and those things. Now, it's completely up to the council when we go forward, if that's what the council directs us to do, to have a veterinarian or not. Those are some of the things that would need to be, I guess, talked about. But our understanding going forward and building this budget was that was the direction that at least the previous council asked us to go in, and that is in that budget for a full-time veterinarian.
I understand that getting somebody, a veterinarian, a new vet to work part-time would be very hard to do, but what I had in mind is maybe if you could get some of the local vets to work with you on a part-time basis or something like that. I don't know how busy, they may be all too busy, but I'd just like to see us look at this very closely, because that's a very expensive item, but it's a very important item for the facility to operate and for the animals that are coming in. I think it's I guess what I'm saying is we shouldn't just set a path and say this is what we're going to do. We need to look at it, look at the alternatives, and see how we can most efficiently have a veterinarian there on duty when we need him. But
I agree exactly, and I think our new shelter manager, one of the first would be to go meet every vet in town and try to get some buy-in. And if we would love if they would donate some time, pro bono time, every month or every quarter or something. That'd be wonderful.
Yes, okay.
And so we'll pursue that.
All right, now coming on down to contractual services, isn't that, we started out at the $413,000. That's what we're currently paying for the East Texas Animal Shelter?
We pay them, I believe it's $386,000 a year, and then we have some other contractual things in
Would
the
you
department.
explain? Because if you took 380 out of the next figure, how come it doesn't drop down to maybe 100,000 or so? Okay. I mean, it's still pretty, it's 350 is still pretty high.
Okay, that's the 15-16 is 6 months of the animal shelter cost. We're still going to need another 6 months contract with the Humane Society.
All right, if we go out to 16-17, are we still contracting with the Humane Society?
No, we're not.
Well, what do we do? What's that,
What does that number?
247,000?
246. Just any other contractual services, emergency veterinarian services, some of those things that would be contracted. Do we have the breakout on that, the line item?
Okay, well, I'm not, I couldn't understand how we still are on contractual
We
services.
won't have
how
any
we're still that
contractual
high.
services with the Humane Society in 16-17 at all, but we still have some services that we'll need, in the operations of it, that we'll need to contract out. But the 15-16 number, we will still need 6 months' time with the Humane Society contract.
But then if you get out to 16-17, it doesn't drop just barely a little over 100,000 when you've got 6 months that you're not contracting with the Humane Society.
Well, at the same time, we have 6 months of cleaning services, lawn care, fire suppression, all of those things, 6 months of those things in 15-16, while in 16-17, it'll be the full year of those expenses.
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have anything in there for East Texas Animal Shelter.
No,
now, if we go to payroll burden, 281 compared to personnel, 729, what is the difference between payroll burden and personnel?
Payroll burden, Social Security, health, Medicaid.
Oh, okay, that's the fringe benefits.
Yes, yes. Sir.
Okay, fringe benefits.
Well.
Okay, we might need to relabel that one. All right, thank you. That's all of my questions.
Yes, ma'am.
First, let me say I agree totally with what Mr. Allen said about the vets. I'd like to see us maybe look at even having like a veterinary medical director of some sort that we have under contract, because I understand wanting a full-time vet so that there's accountability there. But at the same time, that may be something we can explore, as well as getting, everybody's not going to do everything for free, but, working out something that would hugely be beneficial to the bottom line. Fundraising. Okay, so last year, there was $1.2 million raised in private donations. Wasn't there a 501c set up at that time that was set up privately that money came through?
No, it came directly to the city.
Okay. I think that there may be something we need to look at there, because we don't want to recreate the wheel on that either, because from that fundraising arm, I think that it's going to be more beneficial if we are able to get the people who actually support the project and who donated the additional funding that we used, if I'm correct, for the building, because we went over. The projections were a little bit larger than we had anticipated.
Right.
So I'd like to ask staff to look at that
Okay.
and see if that exists, because that may be something that's hugely beneficial as we move forward with our fundraising, because that 1.2 million came in a matter of a month or so.
Now,
So-
currently, they can donate directly to the city.
Okay.
And the way that was donated as well. But there's a little more flexibility, I guess, in the type of fundraising and how you can do it if it's done through the 501c3.
Right, it's a lot more
Like Friends of the Library.
Right,
would be
exactly,
the
like a
model for it.
foundation.
Yes.
almost. Absolutely.
Or Parks Foundation,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. And I had another question. I don't remember what it was. I guess my age is kicking in tonight. I'm dating.
I probably wouldn't have known it anyway.
Oh, I do know what it is. Retail. That slide that said retail, it said $1,500. Clarify what retail is. Are we looking to have someone in there that's going to be selling some type of goods, or somebody's going to rent part of it?
Yes, I think a lot of the places that you look at have, where they sell dog collars, bones, treats, things like that, just to.
So that would be something that we would do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we try to generate as much revenue as we could to offset some of these expenses.
And have we looked at coming up with a number? This is my last question. Have we looked at coming up with a number for the city to city, for the leases for the cities, participation of the other cities?
We're
Because
waiting
I
to
noticed you
get.
said it's real conservative. It is,
Oh, yeah.
from that revenue piece.
Ask me your
The
question
money
again,
that we're
please.
going to charge other communities to participate, for them to secure our
Right.
services for their animals. Have we looked at increasing that?
Right now, this is $87 an animal, I think, is what we've built this on. And I think we would probably start with that just to get started and see, or let our new manager get in and look at that and see. And then we'll just need to negotiate with the other cities and figure out exactly what our cost per animal is going to be, because we've got our animal control in that as well, and other cities shouldn't pay for our animal control part of it, because we're not going to be in the other communities. So we'll need to split some of those out.
Will the new manager be hired before we adopt the budget?
Well, the lady that we're negotiating with, should all that be successful, will not be here by the time we adopt the new budget.
Okay, well, I'd like to see us maybe look at increasing that number. I think that's going to be a huge piece of it.
Yes.
If they're
exactly.
charging $87 through the Humane Society currently, we're basically offering a much better location for pets. So I'd like to see us maybe look at that. Okay, thank you.
Sure, we will.
That's all I have.
Mr. Willard.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I know this is a difficult thing for you all to do because we've never done one of these before. And I understand you're having to do a lot of surmising, and I understand that. And I appreciate the effort that you all have put forth in this process. One question that I have, or two questions. Does this facility contain a crematorium?
No, sir.
Okay. My next question.
Doesn't it contain a facility to dispose of the deceased animals?
Yes, sir.
But it's not a crematorium. It's a chemical process
Okay.
that, it serves the same purpose, but it's not a,
Gotcha.
yeah.
It's the same, that's what I'm, so we have the same capability in the end run?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I
Yes.
need to know. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. I know when this came about, the city donated $2,500,000, county $2,500,000, $5 million. And then the budget, the bid came back $5.75 million. And then Mayor Dean and his program raised the money up to $1.2 million, I think is what the last figure I heard, which is $450,000 above what the building is going to cost. Are we not going to be able to use that $450,000 towards the maintenance operation this year?
Yes, sir. We yes, we can, but we felt like until the building was completely constructed and everything, in case there were cost overruns or any other unforeseen things.
I got newsflash on that. No cost overruns.
Okay.
None.
Then we can use every bit of it over and above that.
Get it done. I mean, there's a contract. Make it work. I mean,
Yeah, and we don't have it all. Yeah,
Right.
We don't have it all yet. Some
I
of it's
understand.
pledged for.
But what I'm saying is,
next
whatever
year.
we have donated in excess, it's not designated to have to be spent on the building fund,
No.
is it? It
No.
can be spent on whatever we see necessary,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Which is very, I mean, that's going to be hugely beneficial. As you're saying, the donation arm of this is going to really help us when it comes to budgeting in these upcoming years, because there is a factor of the unknown that we're not going to be aware of. But what we do know is, we do know what the contract is for. We want to keep that building contract as close to that as it can be,
Right.
because that's what it is. So
Sure.
let's be
And I
judicious
think we
in
have
that.
160,000 coming in next year that's been pledged, so,
All of those things will help us
Yeah.
in this budget process. I know you can't put it in there, but just knowing that it's there is comforting to me anyway, knowing that that's much less. We're going to have to pull out a fund balance to try to fund this shelter this year, and especially in the coming years when we're not going to be able to pull it out of fund balance.
right.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Yeah, I don't think, Sean, correct me, I don't think any of it's restricted just to construction, is it? So I think.
Perfect. Thank you, and thank those generous donors. We appreciate
Yes.
that. Yes, please.
In the 1,391, the last figure I saw, we had about 205,000 in one-time capital costs. So that 450,000 that you're talking about, Mayor, that would be an ideal use for that. Well, I understand that, a bird in the hand and all that. But that would go straight to the bottom line if we were able to have that money instead of including it in
Right.
operating. Okay.
Just good to know that we have it, or that we will have it.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else?
I do have a question.
Please.
Since we've talked about negotiating the contracts, is it kind of the plan that we're going to wait until our director starts to do that? Because I understand the reasoning behind that. It just seems like that would be kind of late in the game to start doing those. I mean,
Yeah.
originally the concept was we would start doing that like immediately, a couple of years back. And I know that it's hard, and I don't know whose job that is, if it's yours or ours or whose.
Yeah,
But-
originally we had wanted to get the person in here and let them do it, but I think probably due to the fact that that person won't be here until October, we can go ahead and start that. Mr. Bonds and I can go ahead and
And when we
start that
do that,
because.
Let's
pardon?
not start at $87 an animal. I know that's going to be hard to figure out, but I think that should not be our starting point. And we should have further discussion before we go
Well,
out
we-
and give them a number.
I think we would base it on what we're projecting these costs are, and then we know pretty much what the animal count from other communities are, so I think we can
Okay.
come up
So
with
that's,
something.
okay, that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see us go out and try and get contracts now, but don't do that for a rate until we talk about it further.
Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
We can come back, if you'd like, at the next meeting with a proposed rate that we would think we can get that, can't we?
Thank you, sir. Okay, proceed on.
Okay. Let's talk about sanitation. We talked about that and want to spend a little time. We went over a lot of things at the last meeting, and this is a recap. We have asked for a $1 rate increase. Irrespective of the new system that we went to 2 years ago, it's been 6 years since we have had a rate increase in the sanitation department. And we instituted the system and told the council at that time and the citizens that if we instituted that system, we would not have to have the $1 rate increase then, and we were good to that. In fact, this is the second year of that without any kind of rate increase. But the fact of the matter is, whether we went to the new system or not to the new system, we haven't had a rate increase in 6 years, and we feel like it's important to do that. I do understand people's concern about increasing those, and we are sensitive to that and understand that.
this is really kind of the bottom line of it. And in a rate-based service that we provide, whether it's our water rates or our sanitation rates, we set our rate or our based on the cost of the service. Unlike in our general fund, in police or fire or parks, we don't pay a cost of service. That we depend on our taxes and our sales tax and those things to pay for that. But in a rate-based system, sanitation or water, we have to set our rates based on the cost of the service. So with the dollar, if you allow the dollar rate increase, we estimate that next year that would raise $5,341,646 to the sanitation fund of revenue. Our operation and maintenance expenses to operate our system just like we're doing now, and that doesn't talk about changes in what we pick up or don't pick up or inside the can or outside. That's just what our operation and maintenance to continue what we're doing right now, $4,507,783. Now, in the rate, and we have to build these into the rate, we have all the trucks and the carts that we had to purchase to go into the new system, and we have to pay for those. And so our lease payment on the trucks and the carts, $834,682. So our total expenditures for that would be $5,342,465, which is about what that rate would do for us. That would give us a fund balance, and then if you allow us to do that, we feel like we can purchase one automated side loader to replace one of the older trucks for $320,000 and still have a good, healthy fund balance at the end. And we feel like that the dollar rate increase will, if you let us do that this year, that'll carry us for hopefully a couple more years at least before we have to come back or take a look at it at all. So, next slide. I'd like to really look at this slide. I think it'll get us, and we, I think, decided or talked about last time that we were going to come back to you all later in the fall with some ideas on some restrictions on things that we had in mind or what we're going to charge for bulky item things and those things. But this slide shows the rate increases and but you see over the last 6 years we haven't. But the three important parts, the O&M cost is in the blue, and when we instituted the program, the automated system, you can see the last 2 years our O&M costs have gone down. The blue has gone down. So we have found efficiency in the system that we've instituted. Now we had to replace that. We didn't get the full benefit of that efficiency because we had to pay for the cost of the program debt, the cost of the carts and the trucks that we had to purchase to get into that. So we feel like that it is working. We are lowering and being a little bit more efficient even with all the issues that we've had, and we're to the point now where we're seeing that. However, it's still, we have to pay for the carts and the trucks that we had. And so anyway, the proposed rate would then go to the $16.89. Now on the fuel part, and I don't know if you have that slide handy, but we have passed along those fuel decreases to the customer. We bill exactly what we pay for the fuel, and that's billed out, on everybody's statement. So it did increase. We passed that along, and when the fuel cost started coming down, we have passed that along to the ratepayer. Okay. So again, we saw this. This is the, if you allow the dollar rate increase, this shows where we stack up against other communities around the state, and then the check marks are the services that we provide as compared to others. Most of those other check marks that you see are
people pay for a certain amount of those outside of their standard rate. And again, we talked about Tyler last week. They're at $16.57, but they subsidize a lot of that rate out of commercial business that they have, and we don't have that in order to subsidize the residential rate. So just to wrap up and then entertain your questions, this is the slide of where we are today at this point. $66 million of expenditures versus 633, 838 of revenues, and that would leave us a fund balance and reserve out for the OPEB costs that we talked about last time. That would give us a reserve, ending reserve next year, September 2016, of 12.62%, which would leave us $1.7 million over our 10% requirement of reserve cushion for the general fund. And then, of course, this is just a breakdown of all the different funds that we have for a total budget of $160,887,483. Okay, with that, I believe that's all we had, isn't it? And be happy to take further directions or answer any questions that I could.
Mr. Willard, thank you for the presentation. Okay, I'm still going to need some clarification because I'm really wrestling with this. I understand it's been 6 years since our last rate increase. I guess I don't understand what drives a rate increase. Because we keep saying, well, it's been 6 years. So are we trying, because I think we need to be a lot more transparent with our taxpayers personally. If we're running a city that says, we're proud that we hadn't had a rate increase for 6 years, but understand, city, every 6 years we need to have a rate increase because of X, Y, and Z. I don't know what it is, but I want to know what it is. And I want the citizens to know why we have to have a rate increase just because it's 6 years. I don't want it to be because it's been so many years. I want to know why we're having to raise our sanitation rate or our water or anything else. I don't want it based on we hadn't had one for the last 8 years or the last 10 years. That's not good enough for me. I need to know why, okay? So I want to be more transparent because we can't hide that. Whatever it is, That's the cost of doing business in the city of Longview. I need to know what is driving that rate hike, okay? Because my understanding in our last meeting was what was driving the rate hike was the fact that we weren't using a fully automated system the way it was intended, and we were making it semi-automated, and we were picking up bulky items and having to take away things from the curb that aren't supposed to be taken away, on and on. And I thought that was what was driving the dollar increase, and I could understand that. But then when I raised that point and we said, no, even without doing all that, we still need the dollar rate increase. But I still hadn't heard why. I need to know why. Okay, that's all I'm asking, and I understand. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I mean, get back with me, but I think we need to know why.
Okay.
Because there has to be some underlying effect, because to me, if we quit doing certain things like getting out of the trucks and picking up things that aren't in a bin and doing those things, then our little blue thing gets even smaller because we become more efficient, right? And that graph that you showed. And more efficient means we're saving money. So I need to know why. Okay. And the next thing I need to know is, and I asked this last time, I didn't follow up, and it's my fault. It's not y'all's fault. I still want to know what it costs to take a load to the landfill. If I want to put my couch in the back of my truck, which I don't own a truck, that's the first point I want to make, and I want to put my couch in the back of my truck that I don't own, and I have to go and rent a trailer to do that, which is at my expense, and I have to haul it to the landfill on my time, I want to know what they're going to charge me to unload my couch on their landfill. I need to know that, because whatever that is, that's what we're saving the citizens every time we stop and pick up their stuff off the curb. We're saving them time, we're saving them money, and we're saving them the effort of having to find a trailer or rent a trailer or borrow a truck. That's what we're doing for free. And I understand that. But I need to know what the value of that service we're providing is, because I just don't know. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So once I get that information, then I'll feel a lot better about what we're doing. Because, and I heard from a lot of people this week, and I'm glad that I did. And I understand there are certain people in our community that don't have the ability to take that 95-gallon bin to the curb, and they need assistance. And by golly, we will always assist those people that need help with their garbage, where they have to leave it. We will do that. That's why you pay your taxes to this city. We will be a responsive city. But that's a small percentage of the people in Longview that can't take their trash to the curb and put them in the appropriate bins that we provide for them. So I need this information so that I can digest this, because I can tell you, this $1 increase, I know it's not much, but I don't like increases. I can't just across the board increase without knowing why I'm increasing it. So if you'll provide that for me, I'll feel better about it. I think the citizens will feel better, because we're not trying to hide anything. I know you guys aren't trying to hide it. I'm just not asking the right questions, but now these are the questions I need to know. Okay?
Well, I think, yes, sir. And I think maybe next time we'll have prepared, we can break down the $4,507,000 of our operating expenses and let you see. I think it's going to be found in labor costs over the years.
That's what I need to know. I
It's
just
where
need
it's
to
going to
know
be found.
where the dollar is. I mean, is it the cost of living? And I know we all of us have to do cost of living raises. I understand those things. Is it the cost of doing business? If so, show me that so that we can at least make it available to the public who are opposed to this because they want to know why. And I want to know why too. Okay? Right. So that's what I'm asking you, and I appreciate that.
Sure.
And I'll continue, then I'll let you guys talk all you want. I want to commend you all, first off, on presenting a budget like this with a flat tax rate, because that's not easy to do with all of the things that we're having to do this year that may or may not have been expected in this budget. And I think y'all have done a wonderful job. Every department has buckled up and done well. And we're not through. Just like one of the speakers said, we're going to continue to search in every department, overturn every stone that we can to find savings in this budget. There are certain things we cannot avoid this year, and we've already mentioned that. We cannot avoid the animal shelter cost. It's a deal we have to man up and take care of, and we will. We cannot avoid the police pay issue. It's not a raise, it's just to bring you up to a market value. So we have to do that to maintain public safety. There are things that we are bound to do because that's what the city does, is provide these services. So y'all done a great job. I'm not thrilled about having to use fund balance. I mean, but at least we're fortunate that we can, but we can only use it this year. And I can already tell you, next year, I will not be in favor of dipping the fund balance again to pay for things that we have to be able to fund on our own, which means we'll either find ways to fund it or we'll start finding places to cut, because that will be our goal starting this year for next year's budget, okay? Which only goes to the fact that it points to the obvious thing that we need to find ways to increase our revenues in our city. And we're trying to do that through multiple avenues, and we're going to continue to do that through encouraging development, encouraging growth, doing things we're going to do to make our city better and stronger. So I appreciate you, and I thank you for what you're doing. And just a few answers my questions, and I'll be more happy.
We'll try to break those O&M costs out over the last 4 or 5 years and let you see if we can identify exactly.
And get me
where
the
those-
cost of a dump trip. I need to know
So
that.
much of, Ron or Dwayne, what's the cost of the dump below the landfill?
At the land. Last time I told you it was 3 tons minimum. For a resident, it's 3 cubic yards minimum.
I know, 3 tons is not going to work for me.
Yeah, and it's $13.25 per ton, so it's about $40 when you go out there as a resident to dump at the landfill. If you're commercial, then it's 3 tons. That's where I got my ton. 3 tons, and you're closer to $130. Or, yeah, about $130.
So $40-something every time I want to take my couch and throw it in the landfill.
Right.
Basically?
Yes, sir.
Or every time I want to take my bags of grass that are bagged up and I want to throw it in the landfill, it's about $40.
Be about $40.
And you mow your grass about once a week during the summertime.
You get one free with your water.
I'm asking, that's my next
No.
question.
not in Longview. We used to do that, and it was abused so much that we finally had to get to the point where we worked out with the landfill to get a discount for our citizens.
Is there a limit to how many times you can go out there with your water bill?
No.
Very good. Thank you so much. You have really made me feel better right there. But it's at least $40.
Yes, sir.
How much does it cost to rent a trailer or a truck? Never mind, I'm sorry.
Mr. Allen will buy the scrap from you and save you.
Not couches, though, not couches. No.
Okay, council, any other discussion for Mr. Willard?
Well, I've got some, I know some of what I'm going to say is redundant to what Andy just said, but, I hear we haven't had a increase in 6 years, and I don't think that's a reason we should be saying, well, we need a raise because we haven't had one in 6 years. I mean, we need to have a reason, like you said. And one of the biggest things I've heard from my constituents is, why are you raising my taxes $1? Fortunately for the majority of us, $1 a month isn't going to hurt anything. But, and I've talked with you about it, $1 here, and everybody in the country that can tax us is raising us $1. Pretty quick, those dollars start adding up. And so I'm just hoping that we can be real judicious in what we do on tax increases. And I think we are in this case with $1. But the thing I have to remember is there are a lot of people out in this community who probably can't afford their medicine. And then you take another dollar out of them or we take another dollar out of them to pick up their trash, and that dollar for some people in this community really makes a big difference. So I hope we can do a lot to keep that in mind and do everything we can not to be increasing it. Just if nothing else, we've got a lot of oil field people who are making $150,000 or $200,000 last year, and they're on workers' comp this year making $500 or $600 every couple of weeks. So we can't just raise it because it's been 6 years.
All right, and let me address that if you don't mind.
Please.
So for the last 6 years, we have like contracts with our labor service. A big part of ours is labor. So our expenditures have increased over those 6 years. That's just what's happened. And we've been able to absorb that. We've actually been at the point where we're saying, okay, let's do something a little different so that we can keep our costs down and not have to have a rate increase, because that's real important to us as a department. We don't want to do rate increases. When we went to the new program, we said, okay, we've got to figure a way to pay for $5 million worth of carts and trucks, and we're going to have to be able to save that in our expenditures to be able to do that. So we put together a plan, and as you can see, $834,000 was paid on payments on those debts, and still managed to keep it so low that even with those increases that we've seen over the last 6 years, now we really kind of need that dollar now to keep those expenditures under control. But we've done some amazing things in the department to keep our costs down. And I'm real proud of those guys for being able to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Archer. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Have we done the numbers on if we change and just go to 2 free pickups per resident per year? Have y'all done the
On the
numbers on
bulky
that?
item things?
Yes.
We were going to come back later and talk about
Please do
about
that, and
for the
also be
program.
able to show us the differential savings of what it's going to do to the budget, okay? I totally get the labor cost, and I will ask this. If we're going to be very strict about the fully automated system, because I voted for it and I'm in favor of it, we also need to also look at an alternative for the people, the residents who do not utilize, who are not going to utilize, because at the end of the day, our labor is still going to be pretty much where it is, or it may potentially go up, because unless we're going to just let the trash sit there and let the bulky items and the couches, because they won't rent a truck, like the mayor was talking about, sit out there, we're still going to have to get it eventually.
Absolutely.
So I would ask that staff would please look at the alternative of what is going to happen when and if that paradigm shift takes place, please.
And I would like to add that if you guys told me right now, hey, start doing it, it's got to be in the can, and gave me the rules, there'll be a period of time where we're going to have to operate before we can actually make that happen. Right. And so those expenditures aren't going to reduce during that period of time. So that's, when I look at that dollar, if we can talk about some things, and if we can say, okay, here's some changes that we can make to the program, then we're going to defer future rate increases quite a bit. The dollar, though, at this point in time is going to be difficult for us to say, okay, yeah, we'll make the changes and we'll be able to cut that back and we won't need it. I don't see how that would
Right.
necessarily happen.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Here's a slide that, to get into, and I think that is the point, that if we restricted everything, that into the can, as Dwayne said, that helps negate any future increases more than it helps us, particularly right now on our bottom line. But I think they got these slides, and we can talk about these later, but our large junk collections, and we saw pictures last year, 6,500 during the year is what we've picked up. That's $25 a day, and approximately 50% of those are from commercial rental properties. Now, that's not a scientific number. We don't have it, but that's just our guys that they come in and report, and they know when they go out on the routes, they know where they're coming from. So that's not Dun and Bradstreet numbers, if you will. Okay, that's just our best guesstimate on where it's all coming from, and it's not far off probably. Limbs and brush, 13,000 collections a year, average 50 a day, and that's approximately 40% are from tree and lawn services. So this is a quick calculation. Out of that trash rate, the 16, if you give us the dollar out of that total rate, nearly 8.5% of that rate is right there. But to Dr. Mack's larger point, most of this is going to be found, I think, a large part is going to be in labor costs over the last 4, 5, 6 years. And, every business in the city, labor and benefits are your big primary costs, and I think that's where it's going to be found, a lot of it. So, plus, as Dwayne said, we spent $5 million to get into the automated system, and we've got to pay for that. So that, along with labor costs, and as long as we keep people to take care of, my next door neighbor has one bag of trash every week, a widower, and so as long as we, I don't know that we ever want to get to the point where we just pass that by, so it's going to be very difficult just to cut your labor cost down to that where you don't have the person on the back of the truck to get off and take care of the widow or the widower that has that bag of trash. But getting a handle on this will definitely help us, but it's more, it's going to take a while to decide what you want to go forward with as far as restrictions and costs and what we're going to charge those people.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. I'm not, well, I'm starting out saying I'm not being critical, but I am being critical. We keep throwing up labor costs. We were, on the old system, which everybody liked, we were doing the city route 3 times every week. In other words, we were running the complete city route 3 times every week. We were doing a recyclable, I believe it was on Wednesday, and you were getting 2 trash pickups. So we were running the city route 3 times every week. We're running the city route twice every week now. Previously, on labor cost, we had 3 people on that truck. Now we have 2 people on that truck. So if our labor costs have gone up when we eliminate one person, we need to eliminate all of them, and our labor costs will go through the roof. It doesn't make any sense for that citizen out there looking at that truck coming down the street with one person on the back where it had 2 people on the back and the system was working 2 years ago. Now we got 1 on the back and we say our labor costs are going up. Now, I'm not asking for a answer on this right now. I'm just saying it's hard for them to understand. Dwayne, how?
I was going to answer.
All right, okay, go ahead.
But that's how we got the $830,000 that we need to make the payment. Is reducing that labor. We don't have our labor did not go up this year.
Okay,
our labor went down this year.
All right, good. The labor went down.
But for the last 6 years, though,
Okay, this
You've
year.
got
the
labor stuff happening.
Okay, this
Right.
year the labor went down. All right.
Right.
Now, let's go back to the revenue and expense, the big chart that showed the revenue and expense. Just the first one, right there. All right, you got revenue $5,341,000. You got expenditures $5,342,000. You're only off $1,000. Why do we need a dollar rate increase?
That's with the dollar.
That's with the,
Oh,
that's
that's what, all right, how much does that dollar amount to in the $5,341,000?
about $300,000.
About 300,000, okay. All right, now, coming on down, you've got lease payments, trucks and carts. We bought 8 new trucks. Do we own them or do we lease them?
It's a lease-to-own kind of thing. That's the way they do it with.
All right, you're
It's
showing
just
that
like we borrowed the money, we
You're
make the
showing
payment.
that
every year.
834,000. Is that the same number over on the bar graph that you show for in the debt payment?
Yeah, that's that orange area. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's that orange.
That's that
area.
right there. You can see the blue. I mean, we've drastically reduced our operation expenses, and that's that labor you're talking about.
Okay, so the 8 trucks, the 8 new trucks, we did not pay for any of them up front.
No,
Is that
not
correct?
cash. We didn't, of course, we didn't have the money.
All right, so we're leasing the 8 new trucks. What about the carts? Did we pay for those or are we leasing them?
Leasing those also.
We're leasing
We borrowed
those
the money.
also.
Yeah.
So, all right, now this new truck, this number 9 truck, we're talking about paying for it in full. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we've got 8 we're leasing all the carts. So really the lease to own, you can call it a lease payment there, but on the other graph, it's a debt payment.
It's debt, yes, sir.
Okay, all right, that, I couldn't understand how you call it debt on one place and call it lease on the other. 300,000, all right, just a minute, let's see. I got debt service, 8 trucks, 70,000 a month.
So our costs are going to go down quite a bit here in
In 5 years, when that debt disappears, then yeah, you start to see, and that's what the whole point of the program was. We're going to get you guys to some real good savings, and then yeah, you don't have rate increases for some period of time,
All right,
or
now-
new programs, hazardous waste collections. What do the citizens want? That kind of thing.
If you go back to.
dollar back.
They want the dollar back. Hey,
You had one other chart down at the bottom of that, OPEB, $1,500,000. I don't know what OPEB.
what are we looking at?
Oh,
What is on the chart?
one of your charts on the dollars down, I guess we're talking about, Mr. Willard.
Other post-employment benefits. We've talked about that for several years.
What is other post-employment benefits?
That's future liabilities for health care. The accounting, GASB, whoever that is, requires us to set aside for future health insurance. That's been there, we've had that there for 8 or 9 years.
Well, maybe my memory's a little short. I don't like initials, but it's, what is it again? What does it stand for?
Other post-employment benefits.
Other post-employment benefits. I don't think I can even write that down, but I'll try to remember it. Okay. $1 thrift cards and trucks, labor cost. I think we all have, and I'm just, this was previously discussed, I think we all have senior citizens, and I'm getting there pretty close. We all have senior citizens who do not physically, oh, I'm there? All right. Who do not physically have the capability to install and remove this 95-gallon cart, and still we're, as Mr. Willard said, the older lady, the senior lady next door, the widower, that has one small trash bag she sits out. We were promised that we would not forget those people when we put this program initially into operation, and I'm going to sit here right now and say we will not forget the people that do not have the physical ability to move that cart in and out. Okay, that's it. All right.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Put the revenue and expense for sanitation back up there, please. All right. We borrowed $2.5 million for trucks and $2.5 million for carts, roughly.
Sir.
And who did we borrow the cart money from?
That was from the water fund.
And we're paying that back 0 interest.
Yes, sir.
The trucks are being amortized over 5 years.
Yes, sir.
We talked, the carts have a life of how many years? 10?
10.
We talked about, since it's 0 interest, it doesn't make any difference. stretching the payment back to the Water and Sewer Fund from 5 to 7. Is that
That's in there.
there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that number would have been about $1 million then with the 5-year amortization on both sides?
Yes, sir, it was closer to $1 million.
Okay, all right. That's it.
Very good.
Just one comment.
Please.
Not on the fees. I just think it's a good opportunity to remind everybody that we need to be doing this as a team. So like to your example, maybe you could pick up your neighbor's bag and put it into your bin. I mean, those are the things we as a community need to, not, sorry to call you out on that, you just gave me a really good one. But as a community, we need to be
He told me
thinking
he'd
about-
arrest me if I got in his driveway, so I don't want to go there.
We don't need any past history on why your neighbor said that. But, you know, those are the things we need to be looking at as a community. These are the things the city council is dealing with, looking at having to do a rate increase. But you as an individual could be looking at, how can I help my neighbor? I see my neighbor can't roll out their bins. Can I help and ask if I can roll them out for them? Those kind of things are easy solutions that we as individuals can all help chip in to make this an easier conversation each year.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I really cut back on my prepared comments with the late hour, but would you allow me one observation on the Water and Sewer Fund and cost allocation?
Yes, sir.
Every major street project that we do has a utilities component to it. Most of the time when we've got the street torn up, we're removing the utility lines, putting new utility lines in, or relocating utility lines. The 52.6 million bond issue we had contains about 6.6 million of utility work in it. That's about 12.5% of that total bond package. And so technically, cost allocation, cost of doing business, the utility fund should be paying 12.5% of the general obligation debt service on the 2011 and 2013 bonds. That amounts to $280,000 a year that the taxpayers are subsidizing the water and sewer fund. So I would have liked to have gotten that installed so that the water and sewer fund is paying its fair share of the GO debt service this year, but we don't have anywhere to go. We're already at the 15% fund balance. We're absorbing the proposed water increase that was originally presented, and we've already cut back on our CIP capital contribution from $2 million to $1,660,000. So there's just nowhere to go, but we're going to be selling the last $8 million in GO bonds next spring, so that $280,000 in 16-17 is going to be even higher. So to echo your comments, Mayor, we've got to find a way to pay for all this where the cost is assigned and not be drawing down on fund balance. So I'm going to keep my eye on that. And as I said, my speech was longer, but I cut it back.
Thank you, sir. One other question before we move on. Back to the animal shelter. Sorry, it just hit me. How many animals do we anticipate taking in the year?
7,000.
Thank you. That's all I need to know. Okay, next. We're going to consider a resolution proposing a tax rate for 2015 and scheduling 2 public hearings on the proposed tax rate. Ms. Cohen.
Good evening. This item is a preliminary vote on the proposed tax rate and establishes the required public hearings. The proposed tax rate is 50.99 cents per 100 of evaluation. The public hearing dates will be August 27th and September 3rd, held here at the City Hall chambers. And I ask that you approve the resolution.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Mr. Willard, do you have something else? Oh, I thought we did that. I'm sorry. Discussion on the proposed fee resolutions. Mr. Willard.
This is just discussion purposes. You have fee resolutions, I think, before you. And I don't think we vote on this tonight. It's just discussion purposes. This shows different fees that we propose to increase this year. We have several planning and zoning fees, other things that we can discuss and go into if you'd like to read this and review this, or we can come back later, or we can go through it kind of line by line, and the department head can explain their justification for that increase if you'd like to do that. Just your pleasure.
It would be my pleasure for us to look at these things ourselves so we can get a handle on them, because I personally have not had time to do that, and I don't want to jump this. We're so caught up in the budget right now that I would like for us to take time to evaluate this and come back and review it very thoroughly.
In the meantime, if you have any questions, you can contact any of the budget team or the director that's responsible for those, any of us, and we'll be happy to try to get information for you at that time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that brings us to zoning. A public hearing will be held to consider application Z15-14. Ms. Choi.
Thank you, Mayor Mack, members of council, and Mr. Willard. The applicant is requesting to rezone from agricultural, seen here in the green, to heavy commercial, C2, to build a proposed hotel. The majority of his property, as you can see here, is already zoned to C2, so he's just requesting to rezone the rest of his property to match all of his property. Estes Parkway is a principal arterial roadway, which is appropriate for this type of use. Staff finds that the proposed zoning change is consistent with the surrounding zoning. Staff recommends approval of this request, as well as Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. This requires a public hearing, which is now open. Any questions, any comments? Public hearing is now closed.
Move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, public hearing will be held to consider application PD 15-08. Ms. Choi.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting to amend PD 11-07, which is a plan development for general retail mixed use, to plan development general retail to allow for a 4-story hotel without a restaurant. The plan development site plan proposes a 4-story hotel that'll be approximately 12,900 square feet with a total of 96 parking spaces. The hotel will have a monument side not to exceed 150 square feet in size, 10 feet in height. Through the site plan process, the applicant will meet all other City of Longview requirements. Hawkins is a minor arterial road, which is appropriate for this type of use. Planning and Zoning Commission and staff recommends approval of this request. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This also requires a public hearing, which is now open. Any speakers or any discussion?
Yes.
Please.
Angela, is there any reason, you say in there that there's no restaurant, is that an issue at all, or?
No, usually we say with a restaurant or without a restaurant with the hotel, and this one does not have a restaurant.
All right. And that's not, that doesn't have a turn lane up there on Hawkins right there, does it, or does it?
It has a center lane.
It does?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It stops right about here.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Public hearing is now closed. May I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing will be held to consider application PD 15-09. Ms. Choi.
Thank you. The City of Longview is proposing to create a college-university overlay district within the South Main Historic District. The South Main neighborhood is a pre-World War II neighborhood that has a unique characteristic which gives it a special historic significance to the City of Longview. The neighborhood has seen decline over the years, and in 1986, the City of Longview rezoned this area into a planned development to preserve the integrity of this neighborhood while allowing flexibility. Since that time, the neighborhood has seen a slow revitalization, but there is still much work to be done. Kilgore College has been a growing anchor of this neighborhood since the early 80s. Future growth of Kilgore College is inevitable, and with the growth, there comes a need to ensure that proper procedures are in place to allow for that growth. Flexibility will be allowed within this proposed overlay district. However, the intent of the South Main plan development will be met to ensure that this will not be detrimental to the existing neighborhood. The creation of this district will allow for the existing homes to remain and will not create a non-conforming issue with any of these existing structures. The proposed overlay district will encompass the entire block from South Street to College Street and from High Street to Center Street. The overlay district will comply with the South Main plan development requirements set forth in the ordinance. However, a few changes have been made to allow for the growth of Kilgore College. Within this overlay district, site plan approval will be required, which is typical of many overlay districts. However, in the South Main district, that is one exception that is made. It does not require Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council approval. However, with this overlay, Kilgore College will have to bring their site plan to Planning and Zoning and City Council for approval. Other requirements that have been modified to create this overlay district are demolition requirements, area regulation requirements, and parking regulations and sign requirements. In the South Main District, the stay of demolition is required for structures depending on the value. And as Dr. Fowler had said, it depends on the value, but it could be 6 months to 1 year for a stay of demolition. In this overlay district, we propose a 45-day stay of demolition instead of the 6-month or 1 year. Since the college or university is not a residential use, we suggested allowing them to have a higher density instead of a 50% area density requirement or a maximum. We allowed 75% density. Parking and signage regulations will be required approval with the site plan through Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. Every effort will be made by the college to comply with existing requirements. And then we did put a stipulation that digital signage will not be allowed on College Street, which is here to the south, or Center Street, but it will be allowed on South Street and High Street. Staff finds the proposed zoning change is consistent with the future land use map and surrounding zoning. Historic Preservation Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, and staff recommend approval of this request. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's not a question, it's a comment. Over the years, I personally have visited with Dr. Fowler several times, and I know the struggle she's gone through to facilitate and increase and implement the programs that she's handling on the Longview campus of Kilgore College. And I'm not sure I understand why we're doing this, but if she's in favor of it, we certainly need to do it. And if it'll increase the effectiveness and maybe the student count and the value of the Longview campus, Kilgore College, I think it's a win-win for all concerned.
Yes, sir.
All right.
This requires a public hearing, which is now open. Any speakers or discussion? Public hearing is now closed. Council, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Joy, public hearing will be held to consider M15-02.
Yes, sir. City staff is requesting to amend the City of Longview's future land use map from medium-density residential here in the orange to retail to allow for future development. The planning department, we are requesting this new classification along High Street. High Street is a principal arterial roadway, which is appropriate for retail uses. Staff is recommending the future land use map be amended to provide more opportunity for retail development along this principal arterial roadway. Planning and Zoning Commission and staff recommends approval of this amendment to the future land use map. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This once again requires a public hearing, which is now open. Any discussion or comments? Public hearing is now closed. May I have a motion?
I move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next on the agenda is our election item. Consider an ordinance calling a special election on November 3rd, 2015, to consider the sale or conversion of the Hensley Park property and authorizing an agreement with Gregg County or the Gregg County Elections Administrator for services, equipment, polling place, and other assistance in regard to said election. Mr. Willard.
Thank you, Mayor Mack and council. This item has to do, I'd like to give a little bit of history, if I might, before we ask you to vote. This has to do with Hensley Park and the future prospects of development for that particular area. And of course, Hensley Park is located at the corner of Hawkins Parkway and 259. It was originally deeded to the city in 1973 by the Cargill family. And the deed in that granting document deeds that if the city ceases to use the property as a park, then the Cargill family would have the right to repurchase that property for the sum of $49,450. Currently, the park is a 38-acre park. It contains 4 softball fields, a playground, basketball court, and an 18-hole disc golf course. Several months ago, Mr. Bonds, our assistant city manager, and I began to meet with a development group who came to talk to us about the prospects of developing Hensley Park. And at that time, we told them, and over the course of our discussions with them, we told them that any action to do anything one way or the other with Hensley Park, or any park property for that matter, requires approval by the voters to remove the designation of park property from a piece of land. That's statutorily required for anything to be done or contemplated to be done with what has been designated park property. We also told them, and were very clear with them from the beginning, that the Cargill family, we could not sell that park even if the voters approved us the right to negotiate with that. We could not do that. It has to go back, if we cease to use that property as a park, to the Cargill family as was laid out in the granting deed in 1973. And then further, that if the city voters did allow us to do that, any negotiations, the city would absolutely require a developer to provide for the relocation and replacement of that park in another suitable location with all new amenities. And so over the last few months, we've been negotiating about these possibilities. We have told the developing group that we would expect any plan to come forward with at least 6 brand new ball fields. We contemplate a tournament quality disc golf course, an 18-hole golf course with all the amenities, parking, concessions, the whole deal, before any consideration would be given to go forward. And so the first step in this process, we feel like that through our negotiations with them that and the possibilities of future development in that corridor, and the possibilities of a city replacing that with brand new facilities, we feel like that it's time to now come forward to the City Council and ask you to go to the first step, and that is to call for an election to ask the voters for permission to remove the park designation from that property. I want to say that if the voters approve that in November, that does not transfer this property to the developers. It just allows the city to go forward in negotiations, and any of those agreements would be coming back to the City Council for full review before anything like that would be contemplated. So we would ask you tonight to call for the election that would be held November the 3rd in conjunction with the regular county elections. And then a real key date, we have to provide and have a public hearing on September the 29th. It'll be here in the City Council chambers, and that is the night when the developers will come forward. They will present to the City Council and to the public their future plans and what they would contemplate for a new relocated Hensley Park, where you can see exactly what we've been talking about, as well as their vision in the future for what that 38 acres of Hensley Park now, what that could do for the city of Longview as far as future development, job creation, future sales tax, property taxes that would generate, and all of that. And that will be on September the 29th when we would contemplate that to occur. And then, of course, Tuesday, November the 3rd would be the time that the voters would decide whether or not they want to allow the city to move forward in those negotiations or not to, and leave Hensley Park as it is and where it is. So I think that's pretty much what I would tell you. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I think the question before you tonight is and we would recommend that you move forward and call for the election for November 3rd.
Thank you, sir. And I appreciate you clarifying, and I hope the citizens can see this to get clarification on this, because I've had a number of phone calls this week about this, and it's not poor communication, it's just miscommunication or not misinformation. But what you need to understand is this: if the voters approve this on November the 3rd, it doesn't obligate us to do anything. We can never, ever transfer this property if we don't want to. If it doesn't meet our satisfaction going forward, we can continue Hensley Park as it is. But if we elect to go forward, it'll only be under the guidelines that what has been planned will come to fruition. And it's my understanding that we will not have to relinquish Hensley Park until the new park is completed. So we will never be without our park system. We will be always up and running with our softball leagues. And what I see this as is increasing our parks from 4 fields to 6, giving us regulatory size fields instead of the smaller ones that they're playing on. It gives us the ability to bring in tournaments, which, okay, remember this, increases revenue. I'm going to say that 3 times in this, because we talked about earlier about we got to find ways to increase our revenues to pay for the things in this city. That's one of them. That increases our revenues here in the community. And when we turn this park property, this very, very valuable piece of land called Hensley Park, and put it back on the tax rolls, because we don't receive anything from it as being park property, that'll also be revenues coming into our city, correct, Mr. Willard?
Yes, sir.
And then whatever they put on that, whether it be retail, whether it be hotels, will receive sales tax revenues and/or hotel motel tax revenues, correct?
And we can sell them water, too.
Bam. Okay, and they got to have trash pickup, don't they?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. That's commercial. But so these are things that could potentially be a huge benefit for the city of Longview, with, at least at this preliminary stage, no considerable downside to us. Am I reading this correct, or is this just too good to be true in the way I'm reading this?
I think it's worth taking it to the voters and asking them, and I think on September the 29th, the public will get a really good look at what they've envisioned for that area and what they would plan to replace that. But to your point, if the voters, that's absolutely right, even if the voters approve that and give you permission, it resides in your hands
Right.
here at this table on whether to go forward or not, or if it's an appropriate use of the land
Right.
and what the future holds. So,
And the next thing I want to make sure everybody understands is, we as the city are not selling this land to some developer.
No.
We're giving it back to the Cargill family for that $49,000 fee in the original contract, and it's their prerogative to do what they want if that so goes forward, correct?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you very much for that great explanation. Any other discussion, council? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Very good, thank you. Okay, items of community interests. Mr. Moore.
I had the privilege yesterday of attending an all-day seminar on the food truck industry in Tyler with several members of city staff. And the seminar was very timely, because since I've been elected, I've had an interest in trying to foster this industry in Longview. Texas, from what they told us yesterday, is the fastest growing market in the United States in the food truck industry. It's an excellent opportunity for small business entrepreneurs to get started in the community. In my wife and I travels, we visited a number of cities where food trucks, and these are gourmet food trucks. We're all used to the Roach Coach designation, but these are gourmet food trucks. You wouldn't believe the quality of food that they serve. I know staff, Laura, and the fire marshal, they're going to be working on a set of draft regulations to present probably in a couple months that would regulate the health and safety of the public, but it would also give our community the opportunity to experience this growing industry and would be an economic boon to our community, I think. So I look forward to that.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Ms. Snoddy.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to take a moment just to thank Scott and his staff. We met earlier this week in Stamper Park and kind of did an overview of the park. And along that note, I would also like to invite the public, the city council, city staff, everyone to a field day event that we'll be hosting in Stamper Park on August 29th. Guys, please come out. This is a kickoff to help generate compassion, pride, and respect back into that community. So I would like everyone to come out for that event. I would also like to say good luck to all teachers, students, and staff, to include myself. School is, yes. I'm back on that tomorrow, so that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Williams.
I want to first congratulate our new chief, Mike Bishop. Job well done. And also, I want to congratulate Dr. Fowler. It's been a long time coming, and I'm looking forward to seeing the beauty, the enhanced beauty of Kilgore College in South Longview. I want to thank Angela Chow, Michael Shirley, Development Services. Am I saying that correctly? Choi. I called you Chow, didn't I? I was just with you today. I mean, really? Okay. Anyway, get back on point. I want to thank you all because for those who are watching at home, Code did a sweep in South Longview. There have been a number of properties in excess of 60 that have been tagged. This is not intended to pick on anyone, but people complain quite often about things that are eyesores. This is intended to continue to beautify our community and create a sustainable community. And something that I think all of us as council, and I know Mayor as well, agree on, it takes all of us to do that. So I want to commend you and your staff for your work, and also for your work with Dr. Fowler and the meeting we had today. The best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Shihara. Mr. Wright.
You know, it's easy walking around town to hear bad things, to read bad things about what's going on in Longview. There are plenty of naysayers, but there are two things I'd like to bring up, two things that happened this week that I want to bring up that bring out the good. There's all kinds of good in this community. The past week, the Junior League had their supply train for the kids, and they worked with the First Baptist Church, and they worked with Buckner, gave away 3,200 backpacks full of school supplies. They almost gave everybody there shoes and a uniform for school. They had nurses there who checked kids' hearing and vision. They gave people haircuts. They're doing a fantastic job for the community. And then we had First Methodist Church worked with the Asbury House and raised $25,000 in a garage sale for the Asbury House. All you have to do, if you hear one bad thing in this community, you just have to remember there's probably 100 good things going on around here. This is a great community, and I'm really proud of all the things that people are doing here.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Mr. Allen.
Yes. My wife and I had the opportunity to spend a little time up north where it was considerably cooler. And in fact, we got a little chilled, and we thought we might better come back to Longview to warm up a little bit. We understand that we haven't had any 105 since we've been here, and I appreciate y'all keeping it below 100, and the community's doing fine. Thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to serve.
Glad to have you back, sir.
All right.
Mr. Willard.
Nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. The Longview Police Department is accepting applications for this year's Citizen Police Academy. The Citizen Police Academy will begin on Thursday, September 10, 2015. Classes are free and open to the public. Applications are available at the Longview Police Department Records Division, City Hall, any of the 6 PAR officers, or online at longviewpolice.com. For more information, call Lieutenant Anthony Boone at 903-237-1199. If your child needs some help with homework, the library is offering Tutoring Tuesday starting in September. Our qualified librarians are here to assist up to 20 students each Tuesday. Sign up today. For more information, call the Children's Desk at 903-237-1345. And you are cordially invited to attend the swearing-in ceremony of Chief Mike Bishop on Friday, August the 14th, beginning at 2 o'clock, right here in the council chambers. Okay, survey time. I know y'all are waiting on this one. Question this week. What is the biggest hurdle that keeps you from being more involved in volunteering in Longview? Here were your choices. No one has ever asked me to get involved. I feel I'm too young to make a difference. I feel I'm too old to make a difference. The good old boy system picks who they want for stuff like that. Or I want to make a difference in Longview, but I don't know where to start. And I was overwhelmed that the answer that won was, I want to make a difference in Longview, but I don't know where to start. And I'm so glad that was the answer, because that means we have people that want to volunteer in our community and they just don't know how to get plugged in. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to make it incredibly easy for you to get plugged into this city. We're working on that right now because we want as many volunteers as we can to help our community. Because you know what? When we're all rowing in the same direction, all in the same boat, we have a pretty good ship. And that's what it takes. It takes ownership. When you volunteer in this community, that means you're putting your oar in the water and you're helping pull the boat. And I appreciate that response, because you never know how these surveys are going to come out. But you know, that was what I was hoping would be the one that won, and it did by a pretty good margin. So we're going to make it easier for you to volunteer because we want your help. We want you to be involved. We want you to stay in touch with what we're doing. Okay, my fun one. Based upon the GOP presidential debate last week, if you had to vote today, who would you vote for president? I'm not going to, you know who all the people are in it. Number one choice, haven't decided yet. Number two, though, Dr. Ben Carson. Number three, the Donald. Okay. Listen, I want to thank everyone for being here. I love these meetings where you come and you participate and you hear what's going on in our community. I would like to recognize that in the chambers tonight we have former Mayor Murray Moore in chambers with us tonight. Murray, thank you for being here, sir. We also have the President of the Longview Independent School District School Board, Chris Mack, here tonight. Thank you for attending as well. And most importantly, I have my daughter, Madison Mack, here tonight, attending our meeting. Okay, thank you for being here. We're adjourned.